We're watching Capital City Sunday.
Attempts to secure the border have once again stalled in the Senate. A bipartisan border security bill failing to advance with no support from Senate Republicans. Joining me now on the show is Wisconsin Congressman Bryan Steil. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me on.
Now, Congressman Steil, while what is taking place at the border is extremely important, I want to pivot slightly here and talk a little bit about what took place on Thursday. A verdict was reached in former President Donald Trump's hush money criminal trial. The jury found Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts in that case. A lot of your Republican colleagues have already weighed in on that verdict, but I want to get your response, Congressman.
From the beginning, I said that these charges were partisan in nature by a Democratic district attorney who was looking to charge a person rather than looking to charge a crime. The same is true as the verdict has come out. And I think at the end of the day, through the appeals process, this verdict will be overturned.
And now members of the Republican Party have kind of taken a different stance in terms of arguing that former President Donald Trump should not move forward as the Republican Party's nominee. These are uncharted waters in terms of having a candidate who has been convicted of a felony run for president. Congressman, are you still planning to support President Donald Trump in November?
The voters have clearly spoken. President Trump's going to be the nominee, and I continue to support President Trump because we can't allow 4 more years of President Biden. When we've seen what has taken place at the U.S.-Mexico border, when we have experienced the inflation of President Biden, the partisan actions by a Democratic district attorney in New York City doesn't alter that dynamic. And at the end of the day, President Trump will be nominated in Milwaukee and will be the next president of the United States.
And obviously, Trump has spoken out a lot about what is taking place at the border. So I want to kind of come back to that conversation. You have done a lot of work in terms to kind of make sure that what is taking place at the border is top of mind for a lot of voters, especially here in Wisconsin. You just recently held a town hall in Kenosha to discuss what you call failures on behalf of the Biden administration to secure the border. Can you talk a little bit about that town hall?
President Biden's failure to secure the U.S.-Mexico border is having real consequences here in the state of Wisconsin. You can take an example of the town of Whitewater, a city of about 14,000 people that has seen over 1,000 migrants move to the community. You could go to Kenosha County with me, where over 40 people died of a fentanyl-related overdose death last year. That's a drug that's being designed in Mexico, or designed in China, produced in Mexico, and trafficked across the border, in killing over 1,000 individuals in the state of Wisconsin just last year. We need to secure the border because it's impacting our security here in Wisconsin. The president has failed to act. In fact, he has made the situation worse. And so there's policies that he could implement immediately. He could end catch and release. He could end abuse of the parole system. He could reinstate stay in Mexico, and he could restart border wall construction immediately. The president refuses to do that, and those of us here in Wisconsin are unfortunately experiencing the consequences of his bad policy.
Border security is obviously a key issue for a lot of voters. How heavily do you think that is going to weigh in terms of the outcomes of the 2024 presidential election?
I think it'll be the top issue, with the core other being the economic policies of this administration. Under the past 3.5 years, everything has become about 20% more expensive than it was when President Biden took office. More and more workers are falling further behind, finding it harder and harder to afford the things that their families need. And so when you combine the economic impacts of President Biden's fiscal policies with the disaster he's created at the U.S.-Mexico border, I think at the end of the day, what we're going to see is President Trump successful in the November election.
Congressman Bryan Steil, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
We also heard from a Wisconsin Congressman, Mark Pocan. The Democrats said the response from former President Trump and his supporters is an attack on our courts, which is part of a larger attack on democracy. He said the important thing is to stress the guilty verdicts came from a jury of Trump's peers.
This is our legal system that has been here for hundreds of years and worked extremely well. This isn't Joe Biden, as much as the ridiculousness of watching some Republicans out there very irresponsibly saying that. And we all should be sad to see this.
Public worker unions are challenging the state's collective bargaining law. Why they believe Act 10 is unconstitutional, the legislature's push to throw out the lawsuit, and what will come next from the judge.